Hello and welcome to the European Parliament. My name is Catherine Fior and I'm delighted to welcome two MEPs, Brian Hayes, EPP and an Irish MEP, and Javi López, who is from the S&D group,
Yes.
Social Democratic group, and from Spain. So I've invited you to reflect both the political and geographical views that might be coming up in relation to Brexit and how the European Parliament is seeing this. So first of all, I'd like to ask each of you, what do you think would be the main red lines for the European Parliament? Javi?
Well, I think the main red line will be protect the rights and the status of the EU citizens that they are living now in UK. No? We have 3 million of EU citizens living in United Kingdom, and the future status is one of the main questions that we have on the table. Now we have more questions than answers, I have to say, in this discussion. We saw arrogant attitude of the British government. This is my personal and political perspective. I think I share with a lot of colleagues here, and we will see how we will deal with this after the start with Article 50.
And there are also a lot of British citizens who are resident, of course, in Spain. So what's your attitude about them in the future? Should they have the right to remain?
Yeah, I'm worried about the rights of the EU citizens living in the UK, but at the same time I'm worried about the rights of the British that they are living in the continent. No? And then our roadmap, this is my political view, and I think we have a consensus in the Camera about this, is the reciprocity should be our roadmap, trying to don't have hostage in these negotiations that could be the EU citizens living in UK or the British people that they are living now in the continent.
So Brian, is there a danger here that EU citizens are going to effectively become bargaining chips and cities of the Irish situation?
Well, I agree with Javi when he spoke about the number one issue is for our people in the UK, and presumably from their perspective, from the UK British citizens living in the 27 member states. We have about 3.5 million EU citizens living in the UK, where they have about 1.2 million citizens living in the 27. So you could argue it's probably more in our interest to resolve that issue, because in any divorce proceedings, the first thing you look after are your children, and those EU citizens from whatever country, Irish, Spanish, Belgian, living in the UK, they're our children. We've got to take responsibility for them. The other issue, I suppose, on the question of money, I would hate to see these talks going into the sand early, just because we're talking about the outstanding budgetary liability that the British have to the European Union. But they do have a liability, and we can't forget that, and we've got to make sure that that is understood as well. As to Ireland, I mean, this is a very, very challenging period for Ireland, no matter who's in government. When we joined the European Union in the early 1970s, we couldn't have joined had Britain not joined at the same time, because both our economies were so connected. We're different now. You know, we actually export 3.5 times as much from the Republic of Ireland to the 26 other member states of the European Union than we do to the United Kingdom. And we've grown as a country as a consequence of that ability to export. So I believe the EU has been transformational for Ireland, and that's the view amongst all mainstream political parties in Ireland, and we've got to protect our interests now. So the key issues for Ireland are around the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, trying to work out some deal, some assessment there, given the fact that so many EU citizens live in Northern Ireland because they have a right to become Irish citizens, therefore a right to obtain EU citizenship. And we've got a huge job of work to do there. But for Irish industry, because no other country is going to be as adversely affected because of Brexit than Ireland, we've got to make sure that we work out some solution there. So I keep saying to people, you know, Brexit, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take a long time. And one of the things I'd like to see early on in the negotiation, and I agree with Javier, sorting out the issue for our people, EU citizens in Britain is a crucial issue, the budget, but also come to an agreement. We need to have a long transitional period. We can't have a cliff edge. Michel Barnier said recently that it will be a disaster for Europe, a disaster for Britain, if we all walked away from this without an agreement. We need to come to an agreement. We need them and they need us. And I think that's a crucial issue. So we need to be hard on the talks. I mean, there can't be any cherry picking. They have to realize that they are leaving the European Union and the advantages of the single market economy that they wanted in place 20 years ago, that Margaret Thatcher argued for 20 years ago. So they believe that there will be some fantastic new and eternal Jerusalem economically by leaving the European Union.
2.0, apparently.
And I don't think that's going to happen for them. So we need to be clear about that. No cherry picking, a fair deal. And the other last point I would make is this, you know, our economies are so intertwined. Britain is in the middle of the capital markets union for Europe. 40% of all EU loans are financed through the City of London. It's, you know, I don't want some kind of new threat to the hard-won economic stability that's been won in the last 8 years. We've got to make sure we do it together, and I hope we can.
Will Ireland be pushing for a compromise when maybe other states might want to take a harder line?
Well, maybe. I mean, you know, it's not just about Ireland. It's the point is this: I want the Irish issues, which are so immediate to me, obviously, and to the people I represent in my constituency. I want those Irish issues to become European issues, and I want the European team of Michel Barnier and his negotiating team to be negotiating on Ireland's behalf as one of 27. Ireland is not leaving the European Union. We're in the Eurozone. We've become a successful country as a consequence of joining the European Union. The fact that the British have gone in this direction actually makes it easier for Ireland to stay in the European Union for all kinds of reasons to do with history and the past and political psychology. Yeah. So we're not leaving the European Union, we're staying in the European Union, and that's why we want the 27 to negotiate on our behalf, and I think we can do that.
And Javi, you are also a Catalonian and MEP. So as you see the politics of the UK, as you see the decision maybe by Scotland to have a second referendum on independence, is this seen as a threat to Spain as a single state? Or?
Well, I think we shouldn't see the Scottish debate as a threat for Spain, especially because it's really different cases. No, we are talking about EU. We are talking about if Brexit, how Brexit affects the Scottish people. We are talking about really different constitutional frameworks, Spain or like Italy or France or Germany, if we compare with the Anglo-Saxon legal framework. And then I think Spain has to see this debate as a different debate that we have in Catalonia. And especially we respect a lot like the debate and especially the referendum that they had and maybe a second referendum that they will have in the future, especially because always it was under the law. It was a negotiation, and I think this is the way to deal with politics, no? Try to have a negotiation, to have a compromise, and try to respect the point of view of the people.
Another small bit of British territory, yeah. Gibraltar, they voted 97% to remain.
Yeah. Well,
what will happen to Gibraltar?
Well, we should ask to UK, no, not to Spain, no. But the truth is, they are now part of the British land. They are a former colony, but at the same time, they have a constitutional framework recognized by themselves, and then we will see consequences in the borders. This is true, but at the same time, I think we have to try to deal this kind of cases reasonable. On the other hand, I think we shouldn't compare the case of Ireland border with Gibraltar because we are talking about different cases. No? But I would want to add something. No? I think everybody in this camera, but at the same time, all 27, we expect peaceful and calm negotiations, and especially peaceful and calm transition process that we will need, trying to respect the fundamental rights of our citizens, trying to have good relations with the UK and the future of UK, but at the same time being clear, defending the EU project, because this will be one of the main points. And part of the negotiations will be try to explain, I think we were explaining this, our negotiators, especially Verhofstadt in the parliament, but in the rest of the EU institutions, that free movement and the access to the single market, they are part of the same package.
I agree.
I mean, you said peace and calm and stability. What the EU has offered Ireland, and particularly the north of Ireland, is the ability to move into a peace process. It's been critical to that particular part of the world. Are we in a period of instability now? We see that Sinn Féin are suggesting a possible border poll.
Well, firstly, I think that the priority in Northern Ireland must be about reconciliation and peace. It's bringing together the two different tribes and those on all sides to really build an inclusive Northern Ireland, to make sure that Northern Ireland works. And I think that's the priority. The Good Friday Agreement is the agreement of my generation. We've taken the gun out of politics, and that day, we can't take that day for granted. We must always work hard at peace in the north. And I think for parties to be getting ahead of themselves and talking about a united Ireland doesn't actually help the process. It upsets people in Northern Ireland. It doesn't actually help the process of delivering for communities on the ground. So I want to see a united Northern Ireland. At some point in the future, I think Irish unity is inevitable. But no one has even thought about this stage when it's going to happen, how it can happen. And we need a strong debate about that without it being sectarian. And I think some of the uber nationalist parties from the Irish nationalist tradition, or indeed the British nationalist tradition, really are two sides of the one coin in what they want. It's one kind of majoritarianism over another. And those of us who represent the Good Friday Agreement, either the Irish government or the British government, must support the agreement. So we need to work through all these issues for Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland voted to remain in the European Union, as indeed did Scotland. But of course, our negotiation is with the British government, and they must have regard to all of these issues that affect the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland. So I hope we can get that deal right. But one thing I would like to agree with Javi when he spoke about the Gibraltar question, I really appreciate, as an Irish MEP here, his own party, the S&D, but also our own colleagues, the Parti Popular, members of the European People's Party. They made it very clear to me that Gibraltar is not on the agenda here. They understand the issues of Northern Ireland, that the Northern Ireland is an international peace agreement. It's not comparable in any way to Gibraltar. And we really appreciate the fact that Spanish colleagues from all of the political parties there understand the nuances of the Irish issue, which has to be recognised in any final settlement.
So you're giving me a very consensual view of what the Parliament thinks. You're from different parties. So where do you think, within this Parliament, who will have the final say on the whatever is being agreed? Where do you think the areas of conflict are going to be within the Parliament? So,
I think the areas of conflict will be on things like the budget, how exactly the British want to have their cake and eat it when it comes to the single market, how financial services will work into the future, where the passporting arrangement is the most brilliant example of how financial services work across the 28 currently, whether or not they are going to remain in the customs union, what kind of arrangements are they going to have for international businesses in the UK that want to apply the existing EU standard. And they haven't even begun to speak about this. We have one speech from the Prime Minister, a white paper, but we don't have a negotiation. So I think it's not going to be easy for the British. They think it's a question of a quick negotiation to resolve all these issues. It cannot be such. It has to be done in a way which defends European interest and ensures that they, yes, get a fair deal, but also a deal that works for Europe. And I think those kind of issues that I mentioned are really the kind of fundamental issues that we'll have to deal with in the course of the negotiation.
And what do you think the main areas of contention will be? We see that the budget is coming up as something that might push us over the edge.
Absolutely. Well, the Brexit bill, it will be one of the main discussions. How many? We will deal with this discussion, and this will be a hot topic, because we are talking about resources, and we are talking about the resources of our citizens, no? And this will be one of the discussion, but not only. Which kind of new status has UK for the EU? Probably we will have a new trade agreement. We will see how will be this new trade agreement. We will talk about free movement or movement maybe, how we will deal with this movement and if we have limits or not, if they are out of the single market. This will be a hot debate, obviously. We will talk about not only the status about the EU citizens in UK or the UK status in Europe, as for example, we have a lot of British who are enjoying Spain, and they are like retired in Spain. Well, social benefits. We have to talk healthcare. We have to talk about this kind of topics. I see that reciprocity should be the way to deal with this kind of cases. And, for example, jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. This will be This is one of the crucial issues. If UK will accept, we expect that they will accept this jurisdiction. This will be discussions. And at the same time, like, we want a good relation with UK, but we will defend and we will be demanding with the EU project.
Okay. Well, what Theresa May is saying is, out of the customs union, no European Court of Justice, complete control of migration, customs union's a bit more vague about. Are we heading over a cliff edge?
Well, I think that's the problem. I mean, it will be a disaster for the British and a disaster for Europe, but more a disaster for the British if we get to a point where everyone walks away from these negotiations without a pathway towards a settlement. Javier spoke about the importance of having a freestanding trade deal between the UK and the 27. That's the ultimate prize, but there's a long, long way to get to that point. And I think it is important to recognise that this is not going to be easy. I mean, for the past 40-odd years, Britain has been entirely enmeshed in every decision that's been taken in this House and in co-decision making with the European Council. So it's not going to be that easy. But I think if the negotiators are sensible people, and certainly Mr. Barnier is a sensible person, he is someone who is very aware of the need to get this right. I think it would be a disaster for us all if we have to walk away from this. And if there is a cliff edge, who loses? We lose and the British lose. So, and the concern is, I was recently in London, I spoke to many people in the Treasury and also in the Bank of England. Their concern is, it's a genuine concern, is this a new systemic threat to our financial security and stability, having worked so hard to put in place the institutions and the supervision to make sure we never go back again to the crash that befell Europe in 2008, 2009. So this could be a real new threat that we've got to deal with, plus the threat, of course, of Mr. Trump and his administration and what they offer Europe. So I think Europe has to stay together, act together, be strong. We also need a very big debate, which you saw recently President Juncker's leading, on the future of Europe. It's not just about Britain leaving, dealing with the Trump presidency, trade deals here or there. It's about the future of Europe, and we've got to lead that debate as parliamentarians here.
Right, well, Javi, Brian, thank you very, very much indeed for this overview and what's going to be a very complicated period. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.